Accidents are unexpected and emergencies can strike without warning to anyone, anytime, anywhere. First aid is emergency aid given instantly to an injured or ill person before regular medical help arrives. A delay in an emergency can cause irreversible damage, so we think it is important to keep a first aid kit easy accessible at your home and in your cars. Because by giving initial and instant first aid, you can prevent further complication with the injury or medical condition. Hi, I am Pankaj and welcome to another episode of Life Skills in Urban Survival. First aid also means to keep someone alive until the patient gets to the second aid, which is medical facility. So, first aid is generally performed by someone with basic medical training. And if you are a first aider, first responder or EMT, you might have kits something like this or maybe bigger and better. But don't worry, we are not going to do MBBS in this video. Though we are keeping it simple and short with necessary item in your first aid kit and how to use them. So let's begin with the first thing first. You can buy a ready-made first aid kit or you can make one by putting items according to your need, but make sure it has all the items you may need. If you are making one, the first thing you will need is a container. That could be a bag or a box. The kit should be neat and clean, preferably waterproof and marked with first aid or a red cross on it, so it's easily recognizable by you and others as well. The content of first aid kit should have supplies for injuries and illness. Injuries include cuts and wounds, abrasion, stings, burn, splinter, sprain, strain, etc. The first thing you will need for any injury is the alcohol wipes. These are very handy alcohol wipes and these are for single use. This is also known as spirit in India, also the same concentration as the alcohol pads have. So you can use a piece of gauze and dip it into that and you can clean. This will decrease the germs. Next thing, after alcohol pad, you should have absorbent gauze in your first aid kit. It is good to have assorted size of these gauze in your first aid kit. These are used for cleaning and dressing the wound. Next thing you should have in your first aid kit for injuries is gauze pad used to stop bleeding and cleaning wounds. Next thing for cut and wounds or injuries you should have in your first aid kit is adhesive bandages, and it's good to have in assorted size. These adhesive bandages are very useful for minor cuts and for wounds. You can simply use them on a cut or on a wound by simply putting it on top of it, and you can cover the cut or the wound. This one is also the same regular antiseptic adhesive bandages. This is a different size, a bigger one. For a bigger cut or for a bigger injury. This one is a good one. I really like this thing. you can open it. It says what to open when. So we open number 1. Now it's the turn of number 2. You open number 2 and then you need to put it on a cut or a wound. Remove this layer. So it has a grid. You can see where to put it on a cut, and then you remove this part. So now your cut or a wound is visible to you. You can see what's happening inside, and this is also waterproof. You can take shower or you can wash your hands if you have a cut on your hand. Next one, this one is again same as the flexi grip. You can see at the back, this is a bandage with a transparent patch. So you can put your wound in here and you can stick it something like this. I don't want to waste it, so I'm not opening it. I hope you understand what is the use of this thing. Then these are wound closure strips. These are used for if there is a big cut or a big injury and you need stitches. So initially, before reaching to the hospital to give it the stitches, you can use this to put stitches on it. So if there is a cut here or a wound here, you can put this thing on here. And then pull it, bring it closer, and then you can stitch it. These are temporary stitches. It's good to have it in your first aid kit. After this, you need to go to the doctor to get other stitches or whatever your doctor says. Next thing, for injuries, cut and wounds, you should have some kind of solution, ointment or a powder for the injuries. Here we have, this is iodine. This is again the ointment, iodine, or a neosporin powder, or you can also have these little sachets of ointment. This is a triple antibiotic. These two are betadine, which is the company name, and the chemical name is povidone. This is neomycin powder, and this one is triple antibiotic ointment. These are good ointment, solution and powders to have it in your first aid kit. These are used to prevent infection and clean wounds. Next thing you should have in your first aid kit is a syringe. This is not for giving injection to someone, but these are useful if you have a kid or you might fall sometime and get a scrape on a mud or a sand, and that sand goes inside your skin. What you can do is you can fill up the syringe with water, with clean water, and with the pressure you can take out the small particles inserted in your scrapes. And with this needle, this is already a sterile, you can use it for taking out splinters or thorns. So couple of syringes are good to have in your first aid kit. Next thing you should have in your first aid kit for wounds is bandages. Again, you should need these bandages in assorted size. After bandages, you need to close them, and for that you need tapes. It's also good to have these tapes in different sizes, and you also need, for cutting bandages and tapes, you also need a pair of scissors. It's good to have a scissor in your first aid kit and a tweezer to take out splinters or things which are difficult to pick with your hands. Next item your first aid kit should contain is something for strains and sprains. For sprains and strains, you can have some kind of a diclofenac gel or a spray to apply on sprain or on strains. And after that, you might need a Crêpe bandage to put on it, or maybe a ace bandage. They come again in different sizes. For closing the Crêpe bandages or ace bandages, you might need some safety pins. These are also good to have in your first aid kit. You also need a cold compression to prevent hemorrhage in your injury. This is good to have in your first aid kit. This prevents hemorrhage in an injury and manages pain, inflammation and swelling. Next thing, your first aid kit should contain something for fractures. This is a triangular bandage used for arm sling and to stop bleeding. You can immobilize your joints with this triangular bandage. And if you are a first aider, first responder or an EMT, you should also have the SAM splint in your first aid. This is very good to immobilize joint. You can put it like this. This is just one example to show you how it works. So you can put it like this, and then you can wrap a bandage around. So my wrist is immobilized now. These SAM splints are good to have in your first aid kit for fractures and for dislocations. Your first aid kit should also contain some hand sanitizer. You can also use a soap in your first aid kit and few masks in your first aid kit. This is a protection for you if you are giving first aid to anyone. These barriers like masks and gloves, they give you protection from infections coming from the other person. It's always good to have some devices in your first aid kit to take vital. Thermometer is a good device to have it in your first aid kit, and you can have the PP instrument in your first aid kit to take blood pressure of a person. A glucometer can help you check blood sugar level. Next thing in your first aid kit should be emergency blanket. This is to reduce heat loss in a person's body. Reasons could be anything: thermal radiation, water evaporation, or convection. This emergency blanket has multiple use. You can even make a improvised shelter with this blanket. Next thing is illness. Your first aid kit should contain some medicine for illness. But if you don't have knowledge of medicines, do not keep it in your first aid kit. First consult your doctor or your health caregiver. Which medicine suits you, that you should keep it in your first aid kit. There should be something for fever, for anti-diarrhea, painkillers, antihistamines, cough and cold, and some oral rehydration solution. In this video, we are not suggesting any medication for you. You need to ask your doctor or your healthcare giver to which medicine you should keep it in your first aid kit. These medicines which I have showed you are just multivitamins or some over-the-counter drugs. Include your personal medication in first aid kit as well. Regularly check for expiration dates and replace any used content in your first aid kit. Travel first aid kit should be more comprehensive because a drugstore may or may not be accessible. Your first aid should also contain a first aid guide, a phone book with all the emergency phone numbers. Prescription medications includes insulin, asthma inhaler, heart medicine and allergy medications stored as directed by your doctor. Safety doesn't happen by accident. Safety first is safety always. Do let us know in your comments how do you like our video. Don't forget to subscribe our channel and press the bell icon for upcoming informative videos. Thank you.